Free speech organization PEN America has canceled its annual literary award ceremony after nearly half the nominees had withdrawn from being considered, accusing the organization of not more strongly condemning Israel's actions in Gaza. A group of nominees wrote in a letter to PEN America's executive board last week, "We refuse to gild the reputation of an organization that runs interference for an administration aiding and abetting genocide with our tax dollars. And we refuse to take part in anything that will serve to overshadow PEN's complicity in normalizing genocide."
PEN America's Chief Literary Programming Officer, Clarisse Rosa Sharif, wrote in an email Monday, "In light of these developments, we regret that we cannot celebrate and recognize this year's nominated writers in the way we had originally planned. As a result, unfortunately, we have made the difficult decision to not move forward with the scheduled awards ceremony on April 29th. This is an unprecedented situation for our team, and we'd not anticipated writing to you with this news." Yeah, and there's a whole, I was just reading through this petition that the people circulated. Is PEN America really complicit in the alleged genocide here? I mean, it's a free speech organization for writers, and I mean, I can imagine what you're going to say. I would say that maybe like an organization, I mean, does every organization be forced to take a side on this? This is an organization that kind of narrowly focuses on advocates for free speech and free expression. So if they were, if they were being silent on some example of a Palestinian writer being canceled or being jailed or something, then you would criticize them for that. Maybe that is the case. I don't see where that's being alleged. Correct me if I'm wrong. If they were insufficiently paying attention to where their expertise intersects with the conflict, then fine. But if it's just generically they haven't put out a statement,
Well, I do think,
that would be my...
for one, more journalists have died in Gaza than in any other conflict, any other war zone, I believe, ever, at least since these kinds of things were measured. About 100 journalists have been killed. Not to mention that this isn't a new phenomenon. Obviously, the death of Shireen Abu Akleh a couple of years ago that went completely unaccounted for. There has been no accountability for an American Palestinian journalist being killed by an Israeli soldier.
PEN America put out a statement condemning the killing of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh back when it happened.
All right. So now
calls for urgent probe of the circumstance. I mean, they've got...
So now, with no accountability having happened for that, we are now in a zone where our strongest ally in the Middle East, who we give more money to than any other country on the earth, has over the last 6+ months killed 100 more journalists and made it very difficult for foreign journalists to enter Gaza to cover the news in the first place. CNN has talked to some degree about how difficult has been for them to get coverage. I know we discussed on the show their good reporting on the grave sites that the IDF was digging up in Gaza, tried to report on them, tried to video them, get closer, see what justification there was for there being Hamas tunnels under the grave site. They were misled at the time, not allowed to go close to what they were told was the tunnel because it was dangerous. And then they were able to use satellite imagery to show that the tunnel location that was being pointed to from afar was not actually underneath where the graves were being dug up. So there has been a lot of obstruction on the part of Israel in terms of letting journalists actually investigate the claims, including obstruction around investigating very serious claims of mass rapes on October 7th and the like. So yes, if you are a media organization, if you're a journalism organization, if you are writers, I can see perfectly well why you would be invested in not participating. Beyond which, any individual has the right not to participate. PEN can continue to hold the event at 50% capacity. But when you believe in something, you have the right to boycott it, to withdraw your presence from it, and hope that action forces a change in the organization.
But I'm genuinely trying to understand what the organization actually did wrong. I'm reading a statement from them that says, "We express our sorrow and anguish at the suffering endured by Palestinian civilians in Gaza, including authors, poets, artists, and journalists." Here's links to statements on opposing the suspension of Students for Justice in Palestine, which I also opposed, rejecting institutional efforts to punish.
It's very clear. I'm reading from the BBC. Here's what their concerns are with the organization. In the context of Israel's ongoing war on Gaza, we believe that PEN America has betrayed the organization's professed commitment to peace and equality for all and to freedom and security for writers everywhere, said one letter signed last month by several famous writers, including Michelle Alexander, Naomi Klein, and Zaina Arafat. The writers argued that the group was acting as a, quote, cultural front for American exceptionalism and was complicit in normalizing genocide. You know,
Right, I'm saying those are unfair accusations, I guess. I think what they're really mad is that PEN America hasn't said that, like, Israel is an apartheid state or something.
And that's, look.
Well, okay then. I mean, that's
10, 20 years from now, the same way that many people reflect on where they stood in the days and weeks after 9/11, I'm sure there'll be a great deal of revisionist history. But I don't think there'll be very many people who say, fence sitters, folks who took a middle ground position or thought that neutrality was sufficient in the face of what the ICJ has described as a plausible genocide, are going to be the good guys in this. And I frankly commend people for acting on their values. I joked with you, I think, before we started recording that, choosing to stand by your principles and not give the imprimatur of legitimacy to an organization who's acting against your interest is a brave thing, and the kind of thing I wish we saw more from people who claim to care about free speech, whether or not it's Elon Musk and his different attitude toward India versus Australia or Brazil or whatever it is. Because when you do withdraw, when you do take the stand, even at personal, professional, or financial cost, you are preventing the institution, the government that is engaging in wrongdoing from having the imprimatur of legitimacy and validity that they so deeply need.
It doesn't. It seems like on this organization, which I've worked with in the past. I think I've shared platforms with speakers who work on behalf of it, who I've found even when I disagree with them on some. I tend not to disagree with them on the areas in which they're focused, free speech. We might have different, a lot of people affiliated with them are more to the progressive side of things, and I've obviously come from some right of center spaces, but I've always found these people very, thoughtful and dedicated to free speech, and I'm just like seeing all the statements, all the work they've done on free expression issues relating to Palestine since the war, and it just seems, I don't know, it seems unfair, but everybody can do whatever they want. If you don't want to work with this organization, fine. This seems like the wrong thing to throw a tantrum about, that you're not going to go to their awards dinner. But whatever, do whatever you want. I don't care.
Throw a tantrum. It's a weird thing to throw a tantrum about. I mean, sometimes, we sit here, and this is a really odd job that we have, and we're so immersed in the cycle. I can understand how things can become an abstraction. But to be really clear, the thing that people are throwing a tantrum about is the fact that over 34,000 people have been killed over the last 6 months. 13,000 children have been killed. 2 million people have been thrown into a state of limbo where 80% of all of their houses have been destroyed. Every university in Gaza has been destroyed. Famine is present. And this feels like such a de minimis thing to be concerned about in the grand scheme of what people are actually protesting. It's not, if this is a tantrum, then my goodness, what word could be used to describe what's actually happening in Gaza, the scale of that violence there. So if this is the way people feel like they can protest.
I didn't say the tantrum was over the violence, and the tantrum over this organization doing, it seems to me, everything it possibly can to advocate for the things you want that are in line with the organization's mission.
It's not in the view of the people who know the organization the best,
right,
doing
I'm saying they're wrong.
Everything that they can. So maybe we can have some of the writers on. I used to work with Naomi Klein at The Intercept. I'd love to have someone on to explain.
I would love to have someone on from PEN America to address these criticisms if they would like. I've spoken. I've met with Suzanne Nossel, the head of the group, before. So we will follow up on that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that there have been multiple letters that have been written by people who have declined to participate in this, detailing more what their specific objections are. And, I don't want to sit here and read them all, but they do substantiate their beliefs. So you can check that out. I'm reading one, I'm skimming through one that's published at LitHub right now. But we've got to move on. Stick around, we have more Rising coming up next.